everyone. Welcome to Legally Sevvy. I am Sevvy, by the way. I'm a lawyer by trade, and I'm here with the beautiful and very, very smart Aydin Paladin. How are you doing
Hello.
today?
I'm good. I got the time confused, hence why we're late. I'm in the UK and I was trying to do the calculations for Eastern time, I think, or West Coast
Central
time, and I got
time,
mixed
yeah.
up. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
my mistake. I was like, oh, that's in an hour, right? No, it's now. Whoops, okay.
I know. I was talking to Aiden and I was like, okay, Aiden, I think it probably will be easier if we just use StreamYard. And you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, so we can use it in an hour. And I was like, oh.
Oh. And then
Okay.
my computer had to restart, and so yeah. But everything's good now. It's still kind of basically on the hour, so it's at the even
Yeah.
time, more or less.
Yeah, that is true. Oh, hello, Tabitha. How are you? Tabitha is amazing. She's also really, really smart. She's very, very talented. And hello, Capitano, and hello, Warlock. Warlock asks, question, will there be a return of the Aiden nap?
Oh
Oh.
no, no, no. Let's hope not. Like EFAP for like 8 hours eventually. I
Oh,
fall asleep.
yeah. I don't blame you on that. Tabitha says, we're friends with Nomi. We understand lateness. Yes,
Yeah.
Nomi will say, okay, guys, I'll be ready at like 5. At 5. We'll be ready. I'll
Mm-hmm.
be ready at 5. And we all show up at 5. Like, we'll show up at like 4:50. And we wait. And we wait. And then it's 5:30. And then she's like,
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm here. I just need half an hour to go get more food or to go get food or to go to the bathroom. It's like, okay then. So I think when you said 5, you really meant 6. But
Yeah. I think I
yeah.
said amen, which is it was a bit more than that, but yeah.
No, I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
It gave me time to fix everything and get ready. So, but hello, everybody. We're here today to talk about UK and censorship, of course, in the United States, in the UK, but most importantly, the Online Safety Act that was passed in 2023. For those who don't know, the Online Safety Act was passed, my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and this is just based on my research as an American. So I didn't live it, I didn't know about it until basically a few days ago when things started to come up. But my understanding on
Fair,
it,
most Brits didn't know it either.
oh,
This like came out of nowhere for most people. I have a friend who's been banging on about this for the last 2 years,
mm-hmm.
so I heard about it, but I think most people had no idea this was coming down the pipeline. So
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
But most people don't know about any laws that are going through legislation,
Mm-hmm.
to be fair.
Yeah. And my understanding is that this came to protect children from terrorism, to protect them from indecent exposure, right? Which I think it's a tagline that makes sense, right? Because everybody wants to protect children, right?
Of course.
But I think there's also a line there about like, at what point is it our duty to parent your kids?
Yeah.
Right.
And what my friend who found out about this 2 years ago and has
Mm-hmm.
been covering it extensively, what he said at the time and has now been proven correct about is that this was about rolling out digital ID, which is basically a form of being able to track everything you do,
Mm-hmm.
but more importantly, like everything you think, things that you look up, every single thing that you do is you always have a digital footprint,
Mm-hmm.
but this makes it easier for all of that information to be very easily cataloged and put into a algorithm
Yeah.
by governments to figure out if you have wrong thoughts or if you're considering wrong thoughts, even to make
Yeah.
it easier to control the population. This is the kind of stuff that you really see in China, but all at once we're seeing it being rolled out first here in the UK, which is not atypical. The Australian Parliament is voting on an almost identical bill right now, and the US will be voting on two very similar bills: the
Correct.
Screen Act and the I think it's a Kids Safety Act or
The
something. very
Kids
similar.
Safety Act. Correct.
So there's, I know that's very funny to make fun of the British for our draconian legal system. I live in Guernsey, actually, which is off the coast of the UK. It is a sovereign nation, so we're not actually affected by this.
Mm-hmm.
But I see it happening to everyone, 5 kilometers away from me, or 10 or
Yeah.
however far away it is. And yeah, it's, if you're laughing at the Brits, you should do. There's a lot of very silly and terrible things that happen in the UK. Just be forewarned. In Australia, it's coming, and in the US and the EU, it's coming, and in the US, it's coming.
Yeah.
The
So
EU also votes this year on it as well.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I wanna show something in my screen here. Let me share my screen. Here we go. So this is the actual text, and let me get to the part that really gets to the meat of the matter here, right? Because you're talking about requiring age verification or the likeness of the age verification. I think I missed it. I might have, I think it was under
I think
verified.
that's 6. It's under. It looks like subsections.
Yeah, so
6,
if a provider is required to, use age verification or age estimation, which you might remember, YouTube basically said, "Hey, we want to see your likeness to see if you're actually a kid or not." Right? This is what they're referring to. But
yeah, I thought that wasn't YouTube saying they were also going to like check your just browsing behaviors. So if you're someone who watches a lot of Minecraft videos, guess what? You're now 5.
And this is the part that I was really talking to, and I was like venting about this today because my work was a little bit slow today. So I screenshotted this part and I was venting about it because this is number 9. So this is under the user. So this is under section 15, chapter 2, user empowerment duties, right? So we're talking about what the content providers are doing, what the duties are. Number 9 says, a duty to include in a service features which adult users may use or apply if they wish to filter out non-verified users, right? So we see everything in Twitter right now. We see the screenshots of everything being blurred, right? Because it is restricted. Right, this is where they're getting it as well, right? So the features refer to in subsection 9, which is also chapter 2. It's much the ones that we were looking at earlier today about ID. If used or applied by the user, result in the use by service systems or processes designed to effectively, again, prevent non-verified users from interacting with content which the user generates, uploads, or shares on the service, right? And then reducing the likelihood of that user encountering content which non-verified users generate, upload, or share on the device. So this is really big. This is, let me just stop sharing the screen here. This is a lot of restrictions and limitations.
And we can see how it's manifesting immediately, by the way. So I don't know if you've seen some examples of it. I know you've been, again, tweeting about a lot of it, but so far the things that we've seen, I can share my screen on this as well. But because some of it's pretty funny. So, one of the big things that happened almost immediately was that Spotify was blocked. Spotify now requires verification of this. Let's see, share my screen. Is this it? Yep. Share screen. Yep. And window. This one. Give me one sec. Sorry.
No worries. I'm also looking for another.
Yeah.
Link
there we go.
Well.
So this is just I don't know how to bring it up or if it's I'm pretty. I only use StreamYard a couple
sorry
times.
about that.
There we go. Oh no. So this is just what you see now if you try to log into Spotify. And the problem with almost all of this stuff is that it's not just affecting the UK, it's affecting users worldwide.
Yeah.
The EU got really hit by this more than anybody else, but everyone across the world is seeing this kind of stuff because, again, if you're not verified, according to this new law, you've not verified your age and the way that they're doing that too is that it's dependent on the site. So some sites might ask for your government ID. Some sites may ask for your government ID and a moving video of your face. Some might just ask for your face. It depends on the site because all of this is actually being conducted on the practical end by the different companies, these private companies, which means you're handing over all of this data over to these private companies. And it's very serendipitous in a horrifying way that this actually rolled into effect the same week as the massive T-app leak.
Oh my God, yes.
1 million women had their, look, I'm not gonna, defend the T-app.
Yeah.
But it was like 1 million women had their I saw the leaks because there was a little game people put
Mm-hmm.
up where you could do hot or not essentially with the users, and I saw people's IDs because it was just the raw
Yeah.
data in their IDs. I saw all kinds of different people's different types of pictures of people in different states of undress. They were clearly like private images that were not intended to be
Yeah.
circulated. But that didn't include government IDs, including someone who worked for the Department of Defense
Oh
had their ID
no.
on that. Yeah. So that happened the same week the UK decided to roll this out. It made it
Mm-hmm.
extremely evident that private companies, I mean, governments can't keep your data very safe, but
No,
private
they can't.
companies less so.
Yeah.
So
In
now
the
you want music. There you go.
in the United States, some of the verification systems they are given to Chinese companies to do, right?
Yep.
So it's like how safe really is your information? Um
Yeah, and in the case of the UK, two of the major countries, I should say, or the companies that are being tapped for some of this, are not in China, but are in the Seychelles and Cyprus, which again, it's outside of the UK. They're the people who are determining a large part of this. External
mhm.
countries handling the sensitive information, essentially of the entire British population.
Yeah. And at what point I think are we comfortable with that information? Because they're not just grabbing, oh yeah, Lucifer's right, Aydin is looking great. I did say she is very, very smart and very, very
Oh, thank you.
beautiful. See, I'm not lying. So
Aw.
at what point are people comfortable with the amount of data that they're losing control of, right? Because look at Spotify. So
Yeah.
I took a look at the Spotify terms and conditions that they have and how they use their data. So
Mm-hmm.
and Spotify has a patent out there that they're intending to use and they have been using where they collect information on you as the user of Spotify. So if you use Spotify, maybe think about not using it because what they do is they do something very similar to what Alexa does. They
Mm-hmm.
record the information
Yeah.
around you. So, hey, if you're going to the bathroom, Spotify is recording that information because what they're doing is they're trying to determine your mood to see what
Yeah.
type of songs you're
No.
going to be more likely to like look at or listen to or be geared more towards. So based on the mood and based on what they determine the sounds are, that will then change what music they're offering to you, right? And Spotify
Right.
is doing that. They have a patent to use it. They record the information that you're using there. They also look at your browser history, which a lot of applications do, right? So you're losing control of your data, and then on top of that, you're going to give them your ID, something like that. This is the thing. I don't think people really understand how huge it is to lose your ID because some people use their
Yeah.
passport, their driver's license, and then you're wondering how
Their
illegal
Department of
immigrants,
Defense
yeah,
ID.
yeah, and then you're wondering how illegal immigrants are getting jobs, how they're getting like how they have your ID and how like they manufacture fake IDs, right? It's like they grab the IDs from a form of different manners, but this is one of the ways that they can get access to you. And what other information are you giving it if you have your browser ability? So this is something that Windows does. By the way, there is a way. There are some applications that will turn this off, but what Windows do, and this is coming from an attorney because in litigation, sometimes we have to look at the metadata from your computer. What Windows
Right.
does, it randomly takes the screenshots of what you're doing on your computer. So if you're using a computer right now, the likelihood is it took screenshots of whatever it is you're doing. And maybe some of those screenshots might be your social security number or your bank information. I mean, think about everything that you have access to, right? Again, we have these applications getting access to your browser history, right? Now they have your, that now they will have your ID, and they don't have they don't really have much of a responsibility other than the responsibility that is imposed by society to keep your data private.
if they get hacked, it will just be, well, the hackers did it. We had all
Yeah.
of these robust checks in place, and if it happens, it doesn't really matter. It's too effing late for it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's interesting. I didn't know that about Spotify listening to you.
Mhm.
But let's talk about the amount of data it now has. It's
Yeah.
going to have your ID. It's going to have your name. It's going to have your credit card number if you're paying for any of it, and it's going to have your voice now because it's recorded.
Yeah.
You. So
Mhm.
absolutely every single form of identification that could possibly use to spoof your identity and commit identity fraud, that's just more easily available than ever. And I think that you're going to see rates of identity fraud go through the roof after this.
Oh,
there's just
definitely.
no way it's not going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Especially too, like Ubisoft came out with their terms and conditions too, and I looked at it, I laughed, and I was like, "This is just so sad." If you they put out, I think on Twitter, "Hey, we updated our terms and conditions," and because I like to read terms and conditions, because apparently I don't have a life, or I just really love seeing
I read studies for fun. I know. Oh no, that's my favorite stuff too. No.
Yeah, so I'm always like, what are they adding here? Well, part of the terms and conditions of Ubisoft, which because I looked at it because I can't, there was like, it related to a game or something. I went and I looked at it, and part of what they have in there, they say that they have the right to record your gameplay and also your likeness. So they can use your likeness. So say, for example, and I don't know how they're doing this because I just looked at it while I was like doing a million other things. Yeah. But I was like, I need to like figure out, I need to like really look at this, and they're just going to figure it out and then make a video on it. Part of what they were saying is like, they can record you. And I don't know if they will have access to your camera. I don't know exactly what they're going to do, because there's ways to access your camera. That's why there's a privacy setting on your webcam.
Yeah.
That you should turn on if you're not there, right? But they, presumably they could have access to it if you give them access to it.
Yep.
So this is part of
the physical. My webcam, which is a bit of a potato, but it's worse at night. It's okay during the day. It has a physical privacy shield, but some people's webcams don't have those.
Yeah.
So if the webcam's on, it doesn't have a physical privacy shield, and they have access to your webcam at whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter what you're doing, and they can access it, then it could potentially mean that they can just spy on you.
It is, and it definitely it's absolutely crazy. And I looked at the EU charter, right? So, and I looked at section 2, and let me share my screen here. This is what I do when I get bored, guys. Everybody needs a hobby. This is my hobby. So article 11, right? So and Two's News pointed this out to me. So thank you, Two's News. I'm not sure if he's watching. And yes, Brimstone, I do also read old Supreme Court rulings too. So this is what it says. Everyone has, or if I make this bigger, will it just? Oh yeah, perfect. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Everybody has a right to freedom of expression. Okay, thank you for that. Really appreciate it. This right shall include the freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart information and ideas without the interference by public authority, regardless of frontiers, right? Okay, that sounds amazing. That sounds like freedom of speech, right? And then you read number 2. The exercise of these freedoms, since it carries with it, quote, duties and responsibilities. So, who determines what duties and responsibilities you carry? Well, not you. May be subject. Go ahead.
As long as you're not breaking the law, right? So if you're, there's a whole bunch of laws you could break. So freedom of speech, though, is that freedom of speech doesn't mean that you're free to slander people or commit libel, depending on if it's written or spoken. So, so that's what it means. The duty and responsibility is to not go outside of the bounds, I suppose, is what they mean there, if I'm reading charitably.
Okay. All right. That would be a very nice interpretation of it, right?
Yeah, trying to steel man it a little.
So freedom of speech may be subject to such formalities and conditions and restrictions or penalties as prescribed by law. Okay, that totally makes sense. But this is the part where it gets a little bit tricky, and are necessary in a democratic society in the interest of national security. Again, I understand national security would make sure that, would impede on your rights. Yes,
Sure.
100%.
If you've got someone posting that they've got plans to attack
Yeah,
people or cause
yeah,
make a terroristic
right.
attack, sure.
Yeah.
And I do want that, and that's why this stuff is tricky too, because that stuff I think we
Hmm.
can all agree is good, and then they turn up the heat on it
Yeah,
or
yeah.
expand the scope.
So they talk about territorial integrity. Again, I get it. Public safety. Okay, well, this is part of where they're getting that public safety part, right? For the prevention of disorder or crime, makes sense. For the protection of health or morals, right? So then we have here over for the protection of the reputation of or the rights of others. So we have three words here that are really vague. One is public safety.
Mm-hmm.
One is for the protection of health or morals, right? And then we see a lot of the, because I've seen in Twitter, because thankfully this stuff is not censored, for me, but things where the people that are speaking out against the government, right?
Yeah.
The police are being sent to their house, right? If they're criticizing the government, I feel like, well, maybe it's because I'm American. Freedom of speech and the right to criticize the government is a crucial part of government. But my understanding too is that in the UK you cannot criticize a crown, for example.
Oh no, you can. It's just that England doesn't have free speech laws.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a First Amendment, such as it were. So that right to free speech that Americans have is not guaranteed by the Magna Carta or any
Correct.
other foundational document in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
You are allowed to criticize things, however, that can run afoul very quickly for causing public distress or public disturbance, disturbing the peace, etc. These are the things, and that is again so like with the things you just read there. What is health and morals or public safety is that these are terms that are so broad and vague that you can make up whatever the heck you feel like and say that this is for public safety, morals, and public health. Because it's up to you. And we are seeing that being applied already. As in, for example, like this one's interesting. This is someone with their screenshot of their posts being blocked was blocked. Like that's the extreme level of how this has been.
Let me know when I can share the
yeah.
screen.
Yeah, it should be up now, I think. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that is crazy.
So this is it's a screenshot of them showing what Twitter looks like for them. Due to local laws, we are temporarily restricting access to this content until X estimates your age. They have taken a screenshot of their post.
Oh no.
And then that was apparently you're not going to see it on my side because again, I live in Guernsey. We're not affected by this. But apparently this post as well, other people were seeing that message on it. Just the post of the screenshots.
Oh.
Is this about protecting children at this point? I mean, this is where that logic their premise immediately falls apart in its application. Yeah. And I can show you some other ridiculous things that happened, which just real quick here. This is one about greenhouses. I mean, that's very dangerous for kids, right?
Oh, greenhouses. They are so dangerous. They are known for their adult content.
An image of a CO2 generator, what they're calling a CO2 generator. What greenhouses need CO2 because plants need CO2.
Of course,
they need it to live. This was blocked.
Because
it's a violation. It would harm children to know that plants need CO2. And similarly, if you happen to be lactose intolerant, excuse me, well, you're screwed because this post on lactose intolerance was also blocked, unless it says here differently. No, it's true. It's who is responding to Peter Kyle, who's one of the MPs who has been forcing this quite vehemently. So, yep. Due to local laws, we are temporarily restricting access to this content, which says this finding comes from a site in modern central Germany. The site is uniquely a good spot for archaeology because of its sustainability for sediment deposition due to the effects on the nearby glaciers.
Oh my God.
This isn't even the lactose intolerance one. Sorry, I don't know where that one got to.
Okay.
This post, though, about just
glaciers.
Glaciers. This is something that needs to be hidden because it could be harmful to children. I mean, you see immediately the absurdity of how this is rolled out, and it's not been Well, if you look at the polling,
Mhm.
the polling so far is that 63% of the British population says that they agree with this, but I think only about 30, maybe I think actually now 23% say that they agree with the implementation. Now, polls are fake.
Oh, they are so
They,
fake.
so,
Yeah. No, yeah, I
and
had
yeah.
I double majored on psychology and sociology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean I majored in crime, community and forensic psychology, which is basically court stuff, right? But
Yeah.
part of double majoring on that included doing a lot of independent research on, and I did a lot of metadata analysis research on polls and how, you know, the wording of those polls really just, you know, you can force a poll to say whatever it is you wanted to say
Oh, very easily.
so
And
easily.
yep. Here is the polling question. This is from YouGov, which is it's also important to look at how they ask questions. So they say, from everything you have seen or heard, do you
Right.
support or oppose recent rules requiring age verification? 69% say support, even after the rollout and things like, I couldn't find the lactose intolerance post, but
Yeah.
sediment, lactose intolerance, uh, posts of your posts being restricted, uh, they still supported it. But the way it's worded, from everything you have seen or
Yeah,
heard, do you
but
support or oppose the recent rules? Verification to pornographic
I
material is what they
know
ask about here.
exactly that's the question. They're not gonna, they're gonna basically read the question as well. Of course I support limiting or restricting pornographic material content
Right.
so children don't, so of course they're gonna say yes, of
Right.
course they're gonna say yes. They're not gonna read any more on it, because if they say
Yeah.
no, they're gonna feel like they're a bad person, because
Yeah.
saying no means that they're okay with children having access to all
Right.
of this content.
Which nobody is, but except for
Yeah.
crazy people
Mm-hmm.
who maybe should be monitored a little bit. But
Yeah.
99% of people agree, yeah, we don't want to show kids explicit material. So that's the question asked. And then when
Mm-hmm.
you go to see how are you feeling about the effectiveness of this rollout, before its implementation, only 34% thought it would be effective, and now it's down to 24%. And this was on the 31st. Every day, this is going to go down.
Oh
It's going to
yeah.
tick, tick, tick.
Yeah,
But even with
definitely.
all their framing, and the other thing too is that with so in the psychology, you might know this. Once you've acquiesced to the first
Oh
question,
yeah.
you said, yeah, I think it's good. I think it's a good thing to restrict them from pornographic material.
Mm-hmm.
You will be more likely to also acquiesce and say yes to the
Yeah.
subsequent question. So even with that priming in mind,
Mm-hmm.
it's 24% of people
Oh
think
yeah.
this has been effective.
And that is so true, because I did some research studies where we had people come in, right, because we did research on it, because to see how much like the media would affect a jury verdict, right? So we
Yeah.
gave people, we had a control group and not a control group, and they came in and we gave them like articles to read. Like we gave them like 8 to 10 different articles to read, and one of them talked about the defendant, you know, like being arrested and then doing all this nasty stuff. The other one, you know, was neutral, right? It wasn't like negative at all, right? And we had one where the defendant was like portrayed like he was arrested, but he's this amazing person, right? So like, and you could tell, you know, we asked him questions about the articles, right, with very pointed language based on
Right.
that. And then when they came back a month later, you could see that like we presented something that was completely neutral, right? Because we had some other students come and act, right, and just be very neutral about like the case and everything, and we had like snips of like the testimony that they were taking, and where it's very neutral, nothing damning, no damning evidence on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could really tell the effect that the pre-questions had on
Yes.
those people like months back, and most of them didn't even remember reading the article at all.
No, it's called priming, the priming
Mm-hmm.
effect. There's two additional effects that have to do with information that are related, which are primacy, which is not priming. Priming is
Mm-hmm.
what this is, where you've said
Correct.
a prime question. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how we remember stuff, there's two models. Primacy, which is that people tend to remember the things that they heard most recently, and then primacy is when you remember the thing you heard first about a story. So for example, with Kyle Rittenhouse, I go to this example often. You will still find people in the world who think that Kyle Rittenhouse went out and shot and killed like 4 Black people because that was the first thing that was reported on.
Mm-hmm.
They heard that and then didn't hear anything else afterwards. There are still people who absolutely believe that. And the recency effect is when you tend to remember things you heard most recently. Mm-hmm. Self-descriptor. All of that stuff plays into this too, as to why this poll is really dumb.
Yeah, so, exactly.
I think that this poll, even though only showing 24% of people saying it's effective, I think that's an overestimation as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think so too. It's just so unfortunate that this is happening, and then I mean, it feels like it's a big storm. It feels like there's not much that can be done about it, but hopefully, I don't know what can be done about it in the UK. I mean, I know that people in the US right now are freaking out because freedom of speech is huge. It is so amazingly huge, and we see what's happening in the UK, and I see it, and I worry about the state of the world because it's not just the UK. It's not just the UK. No. What do you think the next steps are? How do you see this evolving and unfolding?
Very unfortunately, this is very similar to what happened to a lot of things under COVID, where you boil the frog slowly in some cases, or you say it's for your health and safety, which is exactly what they've said here. Yeah. Except now they're including moral health, right? This is for the moral health of society. So it's even more ambiguous in that way. What I think will happen in practicality is that every single country on earth is going to implement these things, and that they'll implement them. The UK is being used, I think, right now as a bit of a testing ground to see how the reaction goes. They'll implement what they've done now, then they're going to walk it back about 10% maybe. There's another theory in persuasion that's called door in the face. There's 2 approaches to persuasion, or there's many, but 2 basic ones that every car salesman knows, for example, is foot in the door and door in the face. Foot in the door is when the car salesman says, hey, this car costs $25,000. And then you say, great, that's a cheap car. Okay, I'll get that. And you start to sign off the paperwork and they say, oh, well, actually, you want to have XM radio, right? And you want to have power steering and you want to have, once you've acquiesced, again, it's that same thing as how the surveys work. Once you've acquiesced to the first question, then you go, well, yeah, sure. At this point, you just want to get your car. Yeah. So you'll keep going, yeah, okay, whatever. And you'll keep agreeing. By the time you leave the car dealership, the car actually cost you $35,000, not $25,000. Door in the face is the opposite. You walk into the dealership and you say, okay, I want this car. They tell you it's $50,000. And then you go, oh, I can't afford that. They say, actually, but for you, because you're so nice and I like you. I like the cut of your jib. I'm going to offer it to you for $25,000. Or no, $35,000. Excuse me. Let me equalize the odds here. Either way, you've walked out of the dealership with a car that cost you $35,000. But how you persuaded people into buying it and thinking they got a deal either way. Door in the face is particularly good at making you think you got a deal. You're winning. Yeah. So I think people are inevitably just going to give up a bunch of their rights, and I think they're going to clap for it. They're going to, we did it, Reddit. Yeah. And it's going to be 10% reduced from the insanity it is now. Yeah. And I think Asmongold was in his YouTube a couple of days back, I think it was like yesterday or 2 days ago or something like that. Yeah. He basically said, like, the internet has been unregulated for too long, right? And he seems to believe that it's inevitable that it's going to happen, right? And he had like that is true, actually. I know he's getting so much hate, but he isn't incorrect in the inevitability of it. Yeah. Sorry, continue. No, I think like there's a big question about, like, does it have to be to that extent, right? And I think this is what you were saying, the door in the face, right? Does it have to be to this extent? And to what extent can we still protect our freedom of speech rights? Because it's not right. Because they had I saw an article in the UK about like putting basically a black box in your car to kind of track your movements. Oh, it's actually pretty similar to things that exist in the EU. They can already. That's the thing with these phones. If you have your phone on you, they can track you anywhere. All these apps do it. Now they've got all of your private identifying information. They're also Google Maps. By the way, you have to look at some of the Australian law here too. Australia is specifying that you're going to have to use Real ID or whatever it's called, digital ID, to be able to use Google.
That's
nobody's Google
crazy.
Maps.
Hmm.
That's being voted on right now in the Australian Parliament. So it's just, again, not just happening in the UK, it's Australia, it's the EU, and it's the US. The US is just about, as is often the case with a lot of this draconian crap, maybe a year or two behind
Hmm.
the rest of the Anglosphere, but it is just right behind it. So again, if it's funny to laugh at Europeans and Australians right now,
I
I
don't think it's
understand there's
funny. I think
two
it's
acts.
sad.
Oh, I know, but I also know it's funny to laugh at England in particular because of how it, you got a license for that butter knife type stuff, right? You know, like the laws here are draconian in many ways. Well,
Hmm.
not here in Guernsey, but in England. And just be aware, every single thing that's being proposed in the UK, or now in the UK, that's being proposed in the EU, being proposed in Australia, is already on the dockets to be voted on in the next year in the US. All
Yeah.
these exact same laws.
Yeah. I know that some of the bills are being proposed in the US were proposed in 2012. So they're not
Yeah.
new. This
No.
movement is not new. It's just coming more to a head because people again are freaking out because what are we seeing? We're seeing people arrested for
Yeah.
expressing their opinion. I saw a couple of memes where I think it was like the wife said, "Okay, we're being robbed. Call the police. Make sure they get here." And the husband says, "Don't worry. I just made a tweet on Twitter. They should be here shortly."
The reality is that there are people who are still, I think, still, yeah, in prison from saying things like reduce immigration or send them back because there's obviously a huge migrant crisis issue
Mm-hmm.
in the UK, as there is in the US. But in the UK, it's a bit more exacerbated because the government is way on board with it, first of all. And we're talking about it's something like 800,000 people a year in the UK. It's
Mm-hmm.
or maybe the last 5 years for that one. It's an insane a number of people who are coming to the UK, and not only are they just coming, but they are given absolutely, if not greater, health benefits. They're put
Oh
up
no.
in luxury hotels. They are given basically immunity from prosecution because one of the things that this actually is legally related, so you might find this interesting. Uh, Last year there was a big protest riot, whatever you call it, in Southport. And there are people who I believe are still in jail today for saying those kinds of things about reducing the migrant population or anything to that degree, for just expressing those opinions on social media. They are arrested and were put in prison.
That's crazy.
There was also the Rotherham rape gangs, and there's no other way to grooming gangs, but they were rape gangs. And the thing that's really disgusting about this is that every single Labour MP, that's the left-wing party in the UK, voted for this bill or abstained from it.
Oh.
And every single person that I looked at who is publicly talking about this bill publicly and is supporting it, including Peter Kyle, most, I think, notably in the public, voted against an inquiry into the rape of thousands of young English girls. God. Every single one either voted against it or abstained.
That is just...
Who cares about children here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's infuriating.
Yeah, it's so much for the whole movement about protecting women and protecting children. Because it's really not. I think they're using that as an excuse. I mean, we have seen it many times. This is how marketing works. This is how news media works. They're there to sell a story. They're not there to tell the truth. They're there to only give their opinion and to sway movement. So generally, there are two ways that you can have people take action. One is through anger, and then two is through fear. Those are the two main basic emotions that will drive people to action. Only those two things, anger and fear, right? So I remember when there was an election way back when, right? And then to drive people to the polls, they were telling Democrats, hey, if you don't vote for the Democratic president, Ebola is going to come into our country and kill you. And by the way, Ebola has no cure. That is how they were trying to get people to the polls. They were using this whole thing about Ebola in Africa, and they're saying it's coming to the U.S. Only a Democratic president can fix it. right? And
Right.
I'm not taking any sides on Republican or Democrat, but this is
Sure.
what the
It doesn't matter
media was
actually.
saying,
Yeah.
right? I mean, both sides have done it, right? But
Yes. Oh
that's the
yeah.
most blatant example that I can think of. And um, and after the election,
Hmm.
suddenly this Ebola crisis disappeared from the news media. No, everybody stopped talking about it because it was not an issue anymore.
Right.
It wasn't
Like,
fixed. Ebola is still there.
yeah, yeah, it's still around. I brought up the COVID stuff because it is
Mhm.
COVID was kind of a test run for a lot of this.
Yeah,
Remember how many of our rights and freedoms we gave up for that?
yeah,
It's for your safety that you can't find out disinformation about COVID. It doesn't matter if it was disproved the next day.
yeah. You
But
can't
this
talk
is
about
today.
COVID, and even in YouTube, YouTube
Yeah,
would
you can't talk about it
flag
now.
videos. Yeah, but YouTube would flag videos if you said the word COVID.
Yes, I. It's interesting now because it's become a psychological reinforcement mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
People got so scared of. I have read some research on this, but I've now seen it happen very in real time from my content. People don't want to interact with COVID because their brains have been conditioned to think COVID, stay away from it, stay away from any information about it.
Yeah.
It's all messed up. I made a video. I put a huge amount of effort into this video, like a 3.5 hour long documentary about this doctor in France who was
Mhm.
involved in the COVID, in a small COVID controversy. And I think people didn't want to watch it, maybe because it's 3.5 hours, to be fair. But I think there's also an aversion because people don't want to think about COVID. And
Yeah.
once you kind of give people that reason of don't think about this stuff, and the way they framed all these laws is they frame them all around porn.
Yeah.
And that's something people don't want to publicly talk about or
Mhm.
think about. So they shut up. And
Yeah.
they, oh, I don't want to be associated with being a gooner. I don't want to be associated with being a freak.
Yeah.
So I won't say anything about it.
What's
Now, it's not about porn. Like I
It's
showed
not.
you
Yeah.
CO2
Yeah.
and
It's
lactose
yeah.
tolerance.
It's not about porn. It's not about the kids. It's not about terrorism. It's really not, right? But they use fear as a tactic. So think about when they pushed the Patriot Act in the United States. So
Right.
what the Patriot Act did is it gave the government the right to go through everything that you're saying if they thought you were talking to a person from another country because they didn't know if you as a US citizen were an agent for that country. So if you have contact with immigrants or people from other countries, then suddenly everything that you do is fair game and they can listen to your phone calls. They don't need a warrant for that anymore. You know, they can go through your stuff, right? I know that if you are an immigrant and you're coming to the US, you give up your phone to be searched in social media. Part of the questionnaire that they ask you if you're coming in is they're asking you, what is your social media handle? Because if you lie to us, then we don't have to admit you in. So they ask you, do you have a Facebook? Do you have an Instagram? Do you have a Twitter? What is your handle? Because they want to go out there digging, right? Because they view it as you don't really have much of anything, right? But we gave up so much in the Patriot Act because of 9/11, and people were scared. And I get it.
Oh yeah,
I get it. It's really scary when a terrorist group from another country comes to your country and then hits the Twin Towers, and a lot of people died. It is scary. I understand that. They used the fear.
I was a kid. I was a kid when it happened. I remember it a little bit. I was like 10 and or 11, I guess. Yeah. And I remember that there used to be in the US, there were these like daily terrorism level updates on the news where it had a little temperature thermometer of telling you like how high the risk of a terrorism was that day.
Yeah.
And when all that stuff came into effect, all the surveillance, all of the crap you still have to deal with today, like having to take your shoes off at the airport.
Yeah.
Just stupid little annoyances. And by the way, like you used to not be able to take anything through an airport, you know, guts and makeup. No, it doesn't matter if it's the idea of 2-ounce bottles going through an airport at one point was absurd in the early 2000s.
Oh my God.
But that stuff's still there. And they said, you know, once the terrorism level decreases, then we can get rid of this stuff. They never got rid of it.
No, I don't understand why I have to take off my shoes. It's like, okay, I guess we can look at my socks and, you know, but it's ridiculous. And then you go through like that scanning thing and they had to like lower the how well it was scanning because when it was scanning you look completely naked. So they had to lower the resolution on it because people were like, dude, Like, why are you looking at my naked body? What are you gonna do with this? But there's so many rights got infringed on because of fear, because of the Patriot Act, and I understand giving up rights for the right reason, but that's not how they're being used, right? And
Right.
to what extent are we willing to give that up?
Uh, it's pretty clear to me that this is probably like the most severe government overreach in recent
Mm-hmm.
memory in any
Yeah.
Western country. One of the things that's also been censored is the name of the prime minister, Keir Starmer, and any
Really?
combination of his name in combination with the term two tier, like TWO dash tier, because people call him two tier Keir. Because one of the things that he has implemented is, obviously Labor would reject this notion, but one of the things that they have really implemented is a two-tier policing system. Whereas if you're a migrant or a non-Brit, again, I just saw today that the guy who is the leader of the Rotherham grooming gangs,
Mm-hmm.
who serially assaulted numerous young girls,
Mm-hmm.
he has been let out of prison. He served 9 years in jail. He's now out
Oh,
on the streets of
oh
England.
my
And if
God.
you talk about that, so that's the two-tier policing system, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't also want to talk about that. So if you look up, there was an article about how the number of children named Keir in the UK has dropped to 0. And there was an article just about that, just about the fact that no new children being born anymore are being named Keir because of the affiliation, presumably,
Wow.
with Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
That article was being blocked because somewhere in it used the phrase two-tier
Oh my God.
on Twitter specifically. You could
Mm-hmm.
find it on Google, and this is really funny. One of the MPs, he was informed by another. Uh, he was informed by Zia Yusuf, or he saw a tweet from Zia Yusuf that said that pointed out that this article was being censored on X, on Twitter. He responded and said, "No, it's not. I did a Google of it, and I found it
Oh
on
my
Google."
God.
These are the people telling you how you should be able to use the internet. They think the Twitter is a Google, you know?
Oh my God. No, it's really not. And just talking about censorship, like, I know that during the election, because of what happened with the whole Russia thing with Trump
Mm-hmm.
and Biden, in the next election, not even that election, but in the next election, the YouTube started censoring videos if you
Mm-hmm.
had any political jargon. Because I know we
Yep.
got hit a lot because Wednesday After Dark,
Yep.
it talks about politics, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we talk about things that are happening in the media, like things like that, and we, part of that during the campaign was politics, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
talked about politics. We talked what was going on, um, and trying not to like pick one position or another, right? But
Right.
we
Right.
talked about what was going on, and we asked for input from our guests, and those videos got hit. We got emails
Oh yeah.
saying, "Yep, we're not showing it to anybody. This is not a copyright infringement. This is not a strike, but we're not. This is like now muted." And I think at
Yep.
some point too, I had a stream where I was like playing a video game, not related to anything, and somebody had their username like they said Biden, and they said, "Oh,
Oh.
hello, username Biden," and
Yeah.
that like pulled down my video. It's like
Yeah.
that is so like censorship is there, whether or
Mm-hmm.
not you know it. That's a different question,
Yeah.
right? Oh,
Yeah.
and what's really scary too, talking about going back to like what's going on in the UK and Australia and the EU and possibly the United States, is if you are requiring an ID verification and you are giving them access to your face and your body movements and and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What is there to say that that information is not going to get leaked? What is
Yep. Nothing. And again, remember, this isn't being done through an official government service that's
Mm-hmm.
got government security, which, by the way, this is crazy. I'll talk about the VPNs here in a second. These are all being done through private services.
Yeah.
One of the things that was being asked about is that, are you going to ban VPNs? Because there was a incredible, insane surge in VPN signups in the UK as a reaction to this. And of course, the question was then being asked, were you going to ban? They said we were going to ban, or we're considering banning VPNs altogether. And the reason why I'm pretty sure they couldn't do it is because a ton of government workers use VPNs to encrypt their work. So government workers for the British government use private VPNs, so they couldn't ban them, or else all of their contract workers wouldn't be able to work. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm pretty sure because they dropped that like immediately. And a lot of people who were coming out and talking about it said, "Oh, I'm a contractor and I have to use a VPN to work for the British state. So what am I supposed to do now? I don't understand." You know. So, but don't worry, they'll come for the VPNs too, from the sound of it.
Yeah, from what it definitely sounds like, they're going for the VPN because they don't want people in the UK to say, no, we're actually in the United States. Yep. So I do think that's coming. I do really think that's coming, because they're gonna say it's part of their enforcement.
Yep, they're just trying to keep you safe and children safe. That's why you can't see lactose intolerance and CO2 emitters, and or posts about posts being censored.
Yeah.
Or an article about how the name Keir is no longer no babies were born named Keir in 2024.
That's just crazy. That is absolutely crazy to me.
And it's coming down the line again. EU, Australia, and the US next year. Exact same legislation, more or less, in the way that it's worded. And from my limited ability to read legal documents, which is highly limited, so I'm relying on other people's readings on that more than mine. But
I did
to look at.
I do have a couple. I did release a video this morning on the topic, and I have a couple more videos, because censorship is a really big deal, and I think a lot of people don't understand how much you're giving up in the apps, like Spotify, right? And I've talked to people who just don't care. I've talked to people who basically have no sense of privacy, and I don't know if it's a generation gap issue or what it is. I'm
pretty sure it's generational.
Because it's just baffling to me that there is no sense of privacy anymore. It's like you're your own private person, right? There's so many laws built on the idea of privacy, right? Like Fourth Amendment, right? The right to be searched, by the government, being protected in your own home, protecting your homestead, also like defamation, libel, right? You're protecting your own privacy and your own self. Also, part of the privacy laws would be not allowing somebody else to use your likeness in an advertisement, right? Because you didn't consent to that, because it's your face. Right. And I know in the United States right now, there's so many laws regarding AI and how AI is used, right? They're state-based right now, which is, really interesting. Some states really are going against AI and how it infringes on privacy on that. Some states don't care, but other states do. So I don't really think that the United States as a whole is going to propose a statute federally to protect it, because privacy is always a state issue. That
to those two bills in the Senate, though, that's the scary part.
Yeah, I meant like laws that would protect privacy.
AI.
Yeah.
Oh no, they're not going to do that. No, they're not going to do that.
I didn't mean to let AI loose, because those are there, and there was an executive order on AI as well, right? I'm talking about the laws that protect privacy come from the states. And here in the United States, as you know, we usually have a lot of state laws fighting federal laws, right? And that's what we're seeing in the court systems right now. Regarding AI, we see a lot of laws out there protecting the privacy of folks. And those are coming from the states, right? That's why we have a state system and the federal system, and that's why it works. Because we don't want the fucking federal government coming in and taking our guns, in a matter of speech.
And hopefully that'll be the thing that really does... that the federal v state system is the thing that maybe helps the US out, because that's how it has been handled so far. But again, those two Senate bills, or are they in Congress? I don't remember.
They're in Congress.
I don't know where are they in Congress? Okay. Those are federal level bills. States will probably be able to figure out how to handle them, I'm guessing, or you're gonna have to fight to figure out how to handle them. And some states will be better than others, probably. But if that goes through the pipeline and if it's anything like this bill, again, every single Labor member voted for this bill. There was some dissent, but it was overwhelmingly passed. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, tons of people also. It's not just Labor; it's the Tories as well. They also voted for it. So and how could you not? It protects children from
Of
seeing
course, the
disgusting
little
stuff.
cute baby children with their cute, adorable faces.
How are we right back in like 1990s? Think of the
Oh,
children, stuff when one of the funny things was, of course, is that within hours of this going into effect, kids were taking videos of Norman Reedus in Death Stranding 2 and using his face
yeah,
to get around the age filter.
yeah, and
So
that's the thing too. It's like part of what I was thinking about as well is that this law will not do what you think it will do, right? Because
No.
it's not going to protect children. Because children are smart, they're going to find a way to get around things. They're going to use their parents' account. There are so many parents out there that just don't monitor their kids. They don't care.
No.
They don't care about parenting, right? Their idea of parenting is just shut up. Here's an iPad. Let me be alone. I don't know why I gave birth to you type of parenting, right? And then because of that, then it's that parenting is then that onerous parenting duty is put on us because
Yeah.
they're not doing their job.
I mean, I've seen, I'm sure you must have seen these kinds of posts on Twitter over this, where I have seen a bunch of parents say, it's impossible. I can't, it's too difficult. I can't figure out how to do this. And it's like, hang on a minute.
Oh.
Every internet service provider, every phone service, everything, every single service that involves phones, computers, your internet service provider itself can let you set up these provisos to make sure that you can say, no, you're not allowed to use these kinds of websites. And it's just ticking boxes. And I'm sorry, and maybe this will shock some listeners, but if you can't be bothered to tick a box, how can you be expected to take care of a child?
Maybe you shouldn't be a parent. Maybe you shouldn't be a parent.
If you can't do, how can you feed them? You know what I mean? Like, how are you able to do anything?
It's just crazy to me. And just going back, because what you said also kind of made me think too about VPN as well, is I don't think people really understand. So how the internet works, right? Just because I represented companies in different lawsuits regarding internet, right? Business versus residential. So crash course. This very short crash course of this. It's two different type of internet services that you can get: business or residential, right? Residential is you're sharing your internet, so it goes from your company provider, and then it goes to an area, and then your 1 terabyte of internet is then shared and buffered by everybody in that area that's using the internet at the time. So you're not gonna get that 1 terabyte internet. Sorry,
yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. The only way that you get your 1 terabyte of internet is if you have a business line, because they get priority, right? But
Right.
if you have residential, you don't. And how those services work again is and then that goes to your computer. So it goes to the area, and then it goes to your home. You know, the cable that goes to your home, and then you might have Wi-Fi or Ethernet connection, and then you can set up the router however much you want. You can maybe set up, what I usually have is I have it divided 3 different ways. I have obviously the Ethernet going straight to my computer here for streaming, right? And then I have my Wi-Fi split into 2 different things, and then I have permissions. So like if you come to my house, even if you have my password, you can't connect to it because I didn't grant you permission to your device, right? So again, we have different steps, right? We're talking company, local area, your house, and then how you divide those connections in your house. And then say one of those connections that you have in your house goes to one computer. And then that computer has the VPN, right? And that VPN then has to go back to your main modem in your house, the main area, right? Then the internet company provider. And then it goes to whatever website you have. So the VPN is only really affecting the website that you're seeing, but your provider has your IP address. Your provider has all the information that you're sending and deleting and, receiving and everything else. So when we're talking about censorship, right? Because companies really fight over what they're going to turn to the government. If those companies want to turn to the government what you said in those tweets, they can identify you. The VPN is not going to save you from it.
Yeah, the issue, I think, more than anything, is that it's the private companies. The government's going to end up with this stuff either way. Like, and that's another refrain I sort of heard around this, which is, well, the government's got all of it anyway, which is a little defeatist, I'd say. But it is true. It is true, to be fair. Like, they do have all your stuff anyway. It's giving this over to private companies. What are they going to do with it? Well, what they always do with it, which is sell all your data.
They're going to sell it. Of course they're going to sell it.
They'll claim up and down they're not, but they're going to sell it. So every single factoid bit of information about you. And then on the opposite side, and how this is being, how they've stated it's going to be used in the UK, is to crack down on anti-migrant sentiment. So if you, and what does that mean? Does that mean posting about it? Does that mean looking at videos or news articles about it? Well, they're not clear. Maybe if you are just, maybe you're a well-intentioned, labor voter, and you really think that, this whole idea of a migrant crisis is ridiculous, but you want to look up information to prove that, the Tories are insane. They're just blowing this out of proportion, and actually it's, peace and love and happiness everywhere. Now you've probably tricked some of the same, or ticked the same boxes. Yeah. They're saying, why are you looking up all this stuff about immigration and crime, or why are you doing that? It doesn't even matter if you're well-intentioned, because to a computer it's all just data. Yeah, you're gonna get flagged. You are gonna get flagged, and that information is gonna be censored anyway, and you're not. So you yourself no longer have access to that information because it's censored, right? And we live and I was gonna say we live in a day and age where, but no, this is true no matter what. Information is power, right? The more you are informed, the better decisions you can make, right? Because there's always going to be people trying to gaslight you, trying to manipulate you, right? Yeah. Companies have an ulterior purpose, which is to sell data, to sell things, to sell you, right? And unless you have access to the information, who are you going to believe? We're going to be left in 1984 with one TV telling us what to believe and what we need to eat and what we need to do. Yeah. And I think that from what's happening in the UK, what it appears to be they want to do with this, and I think this will sound a little weird, but like the new Sydney Sweeney ad, that's just a nice, normal advertisement for once. And it's like, oh, that's so nice. I think we're actually going to go back into this period of only nice things. This is a hypothesis. I could be wrong. Yeah. Because they don't want you to see any like in the 50s. You'll live in like a digital 1950s where everything is just very positive. Yeah, but it's not in reality, is it? It's just that's the reflection they're going to allow you to see is this faux version of reality. There's no migrant crime. There is no war in Ba Sing Se, right?
Yeah, there's no people getting raped or anything anymore. Yeah. This is perfect society. That really brings up. I was talking to one of my friends who is a teacher in schools. And what she told me was, because we were talking about the concept of bullying, right? Because part of this too is bullying, preventing harassment, protecting kids. And I asked her, how is bullying in schools? Because I know how bullying was when I was growing up, right? And I was like, how is bullying in schools? And what she said is, well, it depends how you're looking at it. So bullying in schools now is very, very different. You won't see it face to face. You won't see the snide remarks. You won't see people getting beaten up or anything like that because it all happens online. Right? So bullying now tends to be more on their phones while they're in school. They just grab their phone and they just like send out the text messages because they're all like making fun of somebody else, right? So she looks so ugly or whatever, the stuff kids say, and adults say, to be fair, but yeah, exactly. Some people have not grown up from high school, but that's really how it is. So what schools basically are doing now is they're banning phones completely from schools, which
Mhm.
I also think, in a way, it's also dangerous because we have so many school shootings here in the United States. You know?
It's true. I didn't actually think about that because I've typically been in favor of banning the phones, and that comes from my research that's been done that I've done,
Hmm.
and it's a lit review. Other people didn't. I just
Yeah.
looked at it, you know.
Oh,
But
I love doing meta-analysis studies, so
yes,
yeah, kudos to you.
what I found in that is that there is a significant decrease in young people who have grown up very largely with phones, in particular mobile devices, and their ability to like think at all. And I know that
Oh
that
yeah.
sounds that's a no duh, but when you find it in the data, then it makes the no duh, seems obvious. Now I can show it with evidence that it's. I put a video out about it maybe like 3 months ago, and it's we're talking about severe decrease in
Yeah.
academic performance because they
Hmm.
don't know how to think.
They
And if they
don't.
have a question, they'll go to AI. And that's
Yeah.
even worse sometimes because the AI is. I got into an argument with Grok this afternoon about the collective shout stuff
Yeah.
because one of the things that was going on there in particular was that there was a previous service, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, who had gotten a list of things that they were supposed to remove from their service. It was
Hmm.
something AI. And you may have seen this list, I'm sure you have, where it said one of the things it says is that like any depiction of um, self-harm, including bulimia or
Oh
anorexia,
yeah. Yeah.
and then it said
And eating
in a
disorders, self-harm,
and then it said
self-delete.
in a sexual context pointing a firearm. Now,
What?
yeah, it says
What?
it says in a sexual context pointing a firearm, but you have to think about how you could possibly extend this. If I shoot a naked zombie or a topless
Hmm.
zombie or something, if male or female, is that a sexual context now? Because it's nude, even though it's a monster or whatever. But if I can see a titty, is it now in a sexual context if I'm shooting
Yeah.
a gun? Well, now every game where you shoot a gun at something that's naked, well, I guess
Well,
that's in a sexual context.
that's why
Bye.
they got GTA delisted
Yes, that's
because they
really
had a
how.
strip club.
Yeah, yeah, and it's any depiction of uh, sexual in a sexual context is what it says in a sexual context. Blah blah blah, and one of them is being drunk in a sexual context. Being one of them was being hypnotized in a sexual context, which that's a interesting. They would specify that, but they had this list of things and like being drunk in a sexualized context, and that's another thing that would make GTA no good. Again, if
Yeah.
you shoot a woman who's got her titties out, that's now no good according to
Yeah.
this. Again, depictions of self-harm that include or anorexia and bulimia, but that means any self-harm. So if you have a
Yeah.
character who is, I don't know, going through a mental breakdown, that can't be shown now. If you
No.
have a character who's experienced any kind of mental health problems, essentially those are all now gone from what
Yeah.
Visa and MasterCard are implementing on Steam.
Yeah, when I looked at Visa and MasterCard and what they said, they had those as separate bullet points. So the guns were completely
Yes.
separate from
Yeah.
the eating disorders, the substance abuse disorders, the mental disorders.
Yeah,
So like even
sexual
depression was like flagged too. So it's just it was so incredible to me because it was so vague what they're doing.
Well, I think
Yeah,
that's
I
on
was
purpose.
yeah, of
Is
course.
and I have to be honest. There are some games I probably would definitely. I'm not going to cry about not being on Steam, like that
Oh
No
yeah.
Mercy game. There's some things I think maybe shouldn't be on Steam, and that might be an opinion that might upset some people. But
I agree with you there. I think some games shouldn't be in there, but it's
I
not
don't
my
think they
call.
shouldn't exist. I don't think
Yeah.
they shouldn't exist inherently necessarily.
Correct.
But I don't think they should probably be on Steam,
Hmm.
where you do have a lot of kids, and
Yeah.
you do have just the general public. If that's your kind of thing, and you want to play that, okay.
Yeah.
But I maybe not on Steam. Maybe
Yeah.
it shouldn't be on Steam. And
I
I know
mean-
that makes it harder for the people who make it to sell it, but maybe it should be a little harder for you to sell that a violent rape simulator game.
Yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
sure about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that when I was a kid, our computer was in the living room, and I had access to it like when my parents were around, right? Or they would like go through the computer and then go through the stuff that I was saying, go through my IM. It makes sense. They were my parents. They were parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes total sense because you don't want your kids to be groomed. It is
Yeah.
your duty as a parent to protect your kids. Um,
Apparently, this is unknown in 2025, or it's rare hidden knowledge. But yeah, that was the case it was when I was
yeah,
growing up too.
I know many of my friends had like on their phone like programs that restricted what applications like their parents could have on their phone, restrict what applications they could use, what websites they could use. Their phones would shut off, like um and they couldn't do anything about it. Like between certain times it would shut off.
Hmm.
So I think like Apple has this too where like it says like
All of them do.
define school times, define when they have to go to
Hmm.
bed, and the phone like that
Yeah,
shuts down. You know, so there,
yeah.
so it's, like there's a lot of things out there that will help parenting. I just I just don't think this is the way.
Well, that would require them to spend again about 30 seconds setting that up, and it's so I looked at through some of the stuff because yeah, it's not just Apple, it's Android, it's your
Mhm.
ISPs, every single at every level you can figure out how to set up parental guidelines on this stuff. If
Yeah,
you bought a new computer or a new phone anytime, I don't know, the last 15 years, when
yeah.
you open it up, like the first thing it asks you is this a kid's device or something akin to that,
Mhm.
and then to set up parental guidelines, it's all right there, easy as piss. Just
Yeah,
be like, yes, yes, this is what I want to do with it. And again, if you can't be asked to do that basic stuff,
yeah.
why do you want to? What right should you have to dictate how the rest of the world works? And also, I do have questions about your parenting abilities otherwise,
Mhm.
because you're saying
Yeah.
I can't spend 30 seconds. I don't know
I
how much you
know.
care about your own kids. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah. I know that I've been told, and I don't know how accurate this is, but I've been told that like when you get married, and I don't know if this is a church thing or not, or I should say I don't know if it's a Catholic church thing or not. You have to meet with the priest. There's like this questionnaire where they interview you and they interview the person you're marrying to make
mhm.
sure that you're ready to get married. They should do something like that for kids. You know, they should
It
have
might help.
some type of common sense of like, I'm not saying they're gonna tell you no, you can't have kids, but like maybe through like those parenting classes or something, you can figure things out and get some help.
There's not. I don't know. Well, to quote Jurassic Park, life finds a way. So you're not going to be able to stop that. Like people are
Yeah,
going to be taking
yeah,
kids no
that's
matter what
true.
you do. So, like that one, you can't really put any kind of restriction on, obviously. But it really is parents' duties to do this because every parent parents differently.
Yeah.
Some more effectively, in other words, than others. But also, some parents just have different styles that work with different kids, and
Mm.
the only person who knows your kid is you. So you should know or be able to help
Oh,
try to figure out what parenting style works.
oh, that's right. Thank you, Two Snooze. Havoc was the one who showed me. It wasn't Two Snooze. But thank you for pointing that out. Much appreciated. Yeah, it makes it hard. It makes a censorship much harder. And then we're back to where we are right now, which is how willing are you to give up your rights? And again, considering I'm just surprised that so many people just don't care. They don't care that they're being recorded. They don't care that their data is being sold or that their face is being used. It just is baffling to me. It feels like it's a losing battle.
I think it is a generational issue because, and I think that it's what you're seeing with the Zoomers, who are Zoomers and what is it, Gen Alpha,
Gen Alpha, yeah.
who are not able to use. Some Zoomers are over 18 or 16, depending on the country in question, but and might be able to actually bypass this stuff. But a lot of them are still under that age, and a lot of them are, and obviously Gen Alpha are all well under that age. But they're the ones who aren't falling for it because they've grown up with technology, and the first thing they did again was pull up a video game with an adult's face where you could have a camera mode and could open
Yeah.
up their face and turn it around. They use that. The people who are going, I don't understand the problem, are boomers. I think not so many Gen X and millennials because it's just convenient. They go, well, I don't care. I just want to. What's this? I just want to listen to my music. Okay, here's my full face in rotation, along with my credit card, along with my full legal name, along with my ID, along
Yeah.
with my voice, along with, which is funny to all say while recording this on YouTube, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
at least my ID is not on the screen at the same time, right? Like, but
Yeah, it's just
everything about me, you know?
it's just so baffling. I spend so much time like just protecting my privacy, right? Like I purge the internet on purpose. Like I, repeatedly to make sure that like my privacy stays private, right?
Mhm.
I like take steps to make sure that like my identity is not stolen, right? Because it
Yeah.
is really scary with
Yeah.
AI. It is really like terrifying. What could
Oh yeah.
happen to you? Your entire life could be decimated from your identity being sold.
Yeah.
And there's and then some people just don't care. This is not just
Oh
about
yeah.
like
They'll
go ahead.
care when it hits them. They'll care when it hits them. But they're not thinking that. They're thinking, I just want to listen. I want to look at YouTube right now. I want to look at Spotify.
I
The,
think
the
you're
idea,
yeah.
data theft, that's way off.
I think you're right. I think they're not thinking straight, right? Because I saw a couple of studies that were saying that people who chatted routinely with AI, their brains stopped thinking. They didn't have critical
Yes.
thinking abilities anymore.
Yep.
They just like their brain like decayed, and it makes sense because if you think about the brain and how it works, right? Like when you're a kid, your neurons are rapidly shooting around everywhere in your brain, and the
Mhm.
more you use it, right, it cements the path that it will use, right? Which is why
Mhm.
language becomes important as a kid, right? I learned Spanish and English at the same time, so for me they're in the same area in my brain. Some of the
Yes.
other languages I know are in a different area of my brain because I learned them when I was older. So for
Yes.
me, Spanish and English, I interchange like that without even
Mhm.
realizing if I'm speaking one language or the other. But when
Mhm.
I have to like think about French, right, or I have to think about Japanese, it takes me
Yeah.
longer,
Yeah.
and I can definitely tell, okay, that path definitely has not been traveled very far, right? So
Yes.
your brain decays for many different reasons, and and not using it is one of those reasons. If you start over relying on AI to do the work and you stop using your brain, I can see why people lose the ability to critically think.
Some of the research that's been done on this, which you may or may not have read because it sounded like maybe you had there,
Yeah.
is that what they we have found in some of this literature is that it's exactly those pathways in the brain.
Hmm.
Thinking of it like a computer with files and
Yes.
locations is actually very useful for thinking about this. And what we find in people who tend to be more addicted to their phones, they tend to not actually store information. They instead store where they found the information on the internet. So rather than think, trying to remember, oh, when did that, how, what date in history did XYZ happen? That's not what they remember. They go, I remember looking that up and I found it on Wikipedia
Yeah.
and it was related to this. So that's the information they store, which is good if you have access to a computer that you can use to constantly look that up.
Mhm.
But if you're taking a test, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So now this information is completely useless.
Yeah.
And there's also some information, some research that's shown is that when kids are taking tests and you let them see the phone, just see it. They're able, like it's not, they're not able to use it, but they can see it. It diminishes their performance on the test because they see the phone, but they can't check it. So they're
Yeah.
like, but that's where the information is. The information's right there, but I can't get
Hmm.
to it. So rather
Yeah.
than relying on their memory, they're going, but it's there. The thing that does the thinking for me is
Yeah.
there. They just
The
remember where the information is, not what it is.
the brain is so interesting because I
Yeah.
remember people were baffled by how I was able to remember information. Like when I was studying, for me it was like what makes sense, like this
Mm-hmm.
makes sense, right? So when I was, because like if I'm learning something, I'm always like, why? But explain to me why is it
Mm-hmm.
like this? Why is math like this? Why do you get this result?
Oh, a dangerous question to ask math teachers.
They
They get
didn't
real
like
upset
me.
about that one.
They did not like me. But that allowed me to do really well in psychology, sociology, and law because it's always
Mm-hmm.
a why. So when
Mm-hmm.
I was studying, like when I would study, like for me, it's like it made sense. Like it made sense in my head. So when I was taking the test, I just went with my gut. And like I
Mm-hmm.
remember cases because it's like, yep, like I just memorized some of the names, but the answers were always on point because like how I stored the memory in my head was what makes sense. What is the logical connection to this?
Mm-hmm.
And so many people when they study, they just like try to memorize like different
Yeah.
like different paths and different like mathematical equations and all that stuff, but they don't understand what the formula even means. So
No.
they're not gonna remember
Yeah.
it. They're not gonna remember it if they don't understand what the formula even stands for.
Yeah, just meaningless noise. A really cool way that I learned a mnemonic trick,
Mm-hmm.
which is that if you walk like a path every day, you know, if you're in campus in particular, this works
Mm-hmm.
very well because you're going to walk the same path,
Yeah.
maybe to campus from your dorm. While you're trying to remember things, think about associate them with the place that you're at when you're walking. And this is one of the mnemonic tricks that has the highest efficacy
Oh
because it's
yes.
something you do every day. So you go, I see the tree, I think of this and that, you know, and all, and it
Mm-hmm.
just brings it back up. So your brain is totally capable of doing all these awesome tricks to memorize things. And then when you go, but the phone is here, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, but that's easier. So what we're seeing is with students again with the very high addiction to the phones, and it is why it's something to be concerned about is
Mm-hmm.
the phone addiction. But again, where does this come back to? It's to parents. It's not the government.
Correct. Yeah,
So
it falls on the parents, the responsibility on the duty to parent their kids, right? And hopefully something is done to limit it so it's not as rampant. I know that based on what I have seen in the UK, I definitely think some of those people would qualify for asylum here in the United States because they're being
reopen the asylums, you know.
because they're being persecuted by the government, right?
Yeah.
And part of when you look at the asylum laws here in immigration in the United States, you have to
I thought you were
look.
talking about mental asylums for the crazy people. I did asylum for British.
Yeah,
expats,
British people
yes,
to come to the United States.
I was going more with the crazy people thing, but
Well, there's people there. They are reopening
Yeah.
mental asylums too.
I know. That's why I was thinking of it.
But I was talking about immigration asylum because part of qualifying and being eligible for immigration asylum is you're being persecuted by the government. Yes, you know, for having a political opinion, or yes, right. So all those like little, and then you have to be part of a social group. Again, British person that has a mind of their own, right? So like all the stuff really like it checks those ticks in asylum. I'm not just waiting for people to start seeking asylum and come back and come to the US. That's really what I'm waiting for at this point if they keep being sent to jail.
I as an American, I understand this, but Brits need to stay here and fight for their country.
I agree
They
too.
really do. Leaving. I totally. I've seen tons of posts about that on Twitter and all over the internet of how do I get a passport and asylum in America? Can I apply for asylum in the U.S. On free speech rights? And I totally understand that. Saying this again as an American expat living in a British Commonwealth, British Crown Protectorate. We're not affected by this because I live in Guernsey in the Channel Islands, which is its own independent state. It is the overarching, if someone comes and attacks here, the British government responds militaristically. Obviously, it's as if you were to attack the UK. But other than that, it's independently sovereign.
Correct.
So we none of this is happening over here yet. It'll be here soon, I'm sure. But it's interesting again right now to see it because I'm right next door. But I really think Brits need to stay here and defend their homeland. And I've seen the stuff that British people can get up to, and I think they need to just go become barbaric again. And
I agree.
Drunk
I think
don't get too drunk and go out and protest in the streets at protests that are obvious entrapments to put you in jail. But don't give up.
Exactly.
Keep calm and carry on, I guess. Which is incredibly trite. But don't leave. I don't think that's a solution to abandon the island of your ancestors.
Don't abandon your country. I hope you don't abandon your country. I hope that people do speak up and start fighting in the UK, and I hope that happens everywhere too. So not just because I'm worried about what it would mean to freedom of speech and privacy in the United States, but just because it's such a natural right that I think every single person is born with, that is just really sad to see.
And it's very sad that the origin of all of the rights that America enjoys in terms of free speech come from English common law.
I know!
That's the origin. So it's like, the irony of all of it is that, all of those laws come from English common law. Although there's not, a First Amendment, and so there's no guaranteed right to free speech in the same way there is in the
Mhm.
US. It's still basic ideas that come out of the Magna Carta.
Yeah.
And they should be, in my opinion, expanded, of course, but that's never happened yet. And maybe this is the time for it to happen. I'm worried it won't go that way. However, what we are seeing is a reform, which is Nigel Farage's party, has said definitively, and Zia Yousaf's, that they will ban this. They will repeal the Online Safety Act.
Okay.
And their polling has soared unbelievably in popularity because Nigel Farage is a bit of a contentious figure for a whole lot of reasons, both on the right and the left. But the numbers for reform right now are soaring. They're above the Tories and Labour.
I really hope so.
They're the only ones saying we're going to do anything about this other than perpetuate it. So
I really hope so. My thoughts and prayers will be with the UK and with Australia, and then with the US too.
I wish I had another option besides reform to tell you, but Homeland seems like it's a bit of a maybe crapshoot. I don't know. Out of the options you have available right now, if you're English and you're voting, unfortunately, probably reform is the best bet, and that's why people are moving towards reform. So, and I'm saying that as a conservative person myself. I'm not the biggest fan of Farage myself either, but that's the best bet. They're the only ones saying they're going to do anything about it. Don't trust them. Politicians lie constantly.
Of course they do. They're politicians. Of course they do.
But they're the only ones saying they're not going to do it. So I guess place your bets there. I'm not telling you how to vote, but Labour and the Conservatives seem to be very much. This is a uniparty bill. This bill actually started. It was promoted and put into the Parliament by the Tories, by the Conservatives, and then Labour has taken it up and now always made it their bill. One of the very funny things is once it started to get some backlash, they went, "No, this isn't our bill. No, this is their bill."
Of course they do. Of course they would do that. Classic politician mood. Yeah, they think we have short-term memories. Well, yes, some people do. Yes.
One of the MPs for, by the way, the guy who is the MP for technology, who should be in charge of all this, he should be, you think he'd be on top of it, on the ball. He should know how technology works. He has, by his own admission, an 8-year-old's reading level.
Mm-hmm.
He said he got assessed and he has the reading abilities of an 8-year, 3-month-old child.
Oh my God.
He is the guy who is his name is, I keep forgetting it. His name is Peter. It's not Peter File, but it's really close. Peter Kyle. That's it. Sorry.
Hi, Bill.
It's just very funny that his name is so close to Peter File.
Yeah.
But considering the circumstances, he went on also Sky News and said essentially that I am paraphrasing, Callum formerly of Lotus Eaters on Twitter said this. He said, every time you use a VPN, paraphrasing again, you kill a child.
What?
This is the guy in charge of this stuff. He's the one making these decisions. Well, he's promoting a lot of those decisions, and he's the guy in charge of information technology.
You know what that reminds me of? Every time you clap, you kill a fairy. That's what it reminded me.
He can't read. By his own admission, he can't read. I don't know how he writes bills or approves them. He can't read. He thinks that, again, every time you use a VPN, you kill a child. Oh, and then he called Nigel Farage Jimmy Savile, which, if you don't know, to relate anyone to Jimmy Savile in England is, it's like Epstein and Weinstein put together.
Oh my God.
If you could, this guy was a children's entertainer who molested a lot of children. And he got away with it by dying before he was ever prosecuted for it. And many people who are in favor people who are in favor of this bill did not want him to be prosecuted. Another thing
oh my God. What the
Mm-hmm.
hell? What? Oh my God.
That's the insanity of it. People who have voted against an inquiry into actual mass sexual assaults of young English girls are in favor of this bill. People who, on both sides of the aisle, who voted against inquiries into Jimmy Savile are for this bill, and then have the temerity to turn around and call Nigel Farage, who is like the only person going against it, not the only person, but one of few people in British politics to go against it, said he is like Jimmy Savile because he wants kids to be harmed.
Wow. That's
the insane state of things at this point. Like,
that is
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. That is just so crazy. That like just reminded me when you were talking about it. It reminded me of P Diddy because his lawyers, and I'm making a
Yeah.
video. I'm recording a video on this tomorrow, but his lawyer made the argument that the charges against him should be dismissed because engaging in prostitution is a First Amendment freedom of speech right. So
Great.
yeah, exactly. So it just kind of reminded me of that because like I was already like I was writing the script today,
Yeah.
so like that's why it just reminded me of it. It's like, oh my god, it's absolutely
It's terrible. The people, again, like, it's very hard to take it seriously when they tell you that they care about children and think of
yeah,
the children. This is all about the kids, and then you look at their actions.
of
The people that
course,
they have refused to prosecute.
yeah,
I can't believe that you care about the children when you refuse to prosecute people who raped thousands of girls,
yeah.
or the most prolific pedophile who was a child's television presenter.
That is
Do you know
just
how
so
insane it
crazy.
is? Like, but
Yeah.
that's fine. But they get the children, and
Oh my
that's the
god.
state of
I
England
mean,
right now.
I think at this point they're probably using the playbook of the Catholic Church to try and avoid liability for what their bad actors are doing, and that's just all types of level of messed up.
Just when you watch the BBC, when you watch any BBC coverage of this, please remember that the BBC protected Jimmy Savile for decades, despite knowing that he was molesting children, or had pretty good inclination at the very least, allegedly, whatever, to protect myself a little there, but only very mildly, because it's all pretty much confirmed. So when the BBC tells you that they care about children, remember that they protected Jimmy Savile.
Of course it did. Of course it did. Well, we were gonna go for an hour. We are at an hour and 35 minutes. We had some really good conversation here.
I was a half an hour late, so there you go. You got an extra.
We got an extra hour. But I really appreciate, Aydin, the discussion that we had. You are so smart. I love picking your brain.
Oh, thank you.
You're such a wonderful person.
Anytime.
Yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank you,
yeah, of course to you.
Definitely, like, whatever.
Yeah, we'll connect. We have been trying to plan a gaming stream, and it's been difficult. We'll see from my end, but I'll DM you. We'll make it work. But thank you so much for coming. Do you want to tell chat where they can find you? Do you have a link tree, by the way?
I don't. It's just Aydin Paladin on YouTube, AYDIN PALADIN. Next thing I've got coming up is there's a guy. This might resonate more with the audience over here than the extreme politics channel I was on talking about this exact same thing last night. But there's a guy who published 19 papers about Star Trek in the Journal of Early Human Development, which is a medical journal about fetal development. He published 19 papers that were like Wikipedia articles about Star Trek. He got this published sincerely in a medical journal. I don't really understand how. Well, I have some suspicions, but I'm making it. I have a shorter documentary. It's not 3.5 hours. It should be about like maybe an hour long. But this guy, he just loves Star Trek. He's super fascinated. He fascinates me in terms of, fascinating. But he decided he wanted to publish Star Trek papers in a medical journal, and for whatever reason, it happened. They all got retracted, but eventually people went, wait a minute, you can't do that. You can't publish Star Trek papers in a medical journal.
Oh my god.
But it's just a little story about him that I think is interesting. So if you like Star Trek or scientific fraud stories or whatever, that's what
those are always so interesting. That is rampant. That is so rampant.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, because I've heard stories. I've heard many stories about how rampant it is and how some stuff gets out into the science journal that should have never been there. So,
nope.
But thank you, Aydin. Aydin has a Discord too, so make sure to join it. I'm sure the links are in her Twitter. I put the link in chat, so make sure you guys follow Aydin if you don't already. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I will be probably playing Stellar Blade a little bit later today, and then be over at Moonskull doing Strange Aeons. And tomorrow in my Discord, I do a watch party every Saturday, and we're gonna watch The Shadow tomorrow. Yeah, at 1 p.m. Central Time. So thank you, everybody. We will talk to all of you guys later. Much love. Bye, everybody.